The coldest I've ever been on the job was hanging rigid pipe in a parking garage in February. And luckily, in my previous time as a lifty working a chairlift at Ski Sundown, I was taught by somebody over there how to dress for the cold, and it saved my ass. Not only my ass, but also probably my fingers and my toes, because I swear to God, those concrete buildings, they hold cold like nothing else. So I want to show you the 3 levels of dress that I use to keep warm on the job. Now, of course, it's going to depend on where you are, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. For me, where I live, here in Connecticut, this is what I do. Level 1 is when the day is going to be somewhere around 30 degrees. Now, at this level, you're probably going to be generating enough body heat that you're going to lose a couple of layers anyway. You know, when you're working and you're going up and down ladders and lifting stuff and cutting and all that kind of stuff, you're working, so you're going to be sweating. And unfortunately, that's one of the biggest problems, is keeping that moisture at bay. So I always tend to wear a base layer when it gets below 30. The whole idea of a base layer is to get moisture away from your skin. Think about when you get out of a pool, even in the middle of a hot summer day, you feel cold, right? It's the same thing. It's just energy transfer through your skin. So the idea is to get all that moisture off of your skin. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is with a merino wool base layer. Now, these are a lot more affordable than they used to be. And if your budget doesn't allow pure merino wool, then you could go with a synthetic wool blend. That's cool, but the more wool, the better. Now, the whole idea with a base layer is it's supposed to fit tight against your skin. The more surface contact that it has with your body, the better. Because the idea is it's gonna pull that sweat off of your skin to the outside where it can evaporate. So a lot of times I'm down to just that base layer and maybe a vest, and then I'm working in that. And then you could put on a layer or two as the day goes on, or it gets colder, or you have to, you stop and you start to chill out a little bit. Now, the base layer that I use is actually from Helly Hansen Workwear. I like it because it's a quarter zip, and you can actually unzip it if you start to get a little warm, or zip it up if you want to cover your neck. Your neck sweats a lot too, so, getting that off of your neck helps. So I use that. Now, you can find these base layers pretty much anywhere. I know that Carhartt and Duluth Trading Company have them, EMS, REI, places like that, so they're readily available. On top of that base layer, I'll usually wear a flannel shirt. Now, my old preference was the Duluth Trading Company. I think they were called like the hanger bender flannels. They were really nice, but they seem to have changed those. So now my favorite work shirt is from Patagonia Workwear. It's called the Farrier shirt. It's really kind of expensive, but metal buttons, really, really nice. So I have a bunch of those that I like to wear on top of my base layer. So that flannel shirt is part of what we call the mid layer or the insulating layer. And the whole idea of the insulating layer is to keep warm air trapped against your body. So usually the thicker the material, the better. The more air that it could trap, the better. So in a case like this, when we're actually working, you want it to be not so thick as to inhibit your movement, but enough to keep you warm. The base layer's job is to get sweat and moisture away from the skin. The mid layer is to keep that warm air trapped against your body, which brings me to the outside layer. The outer layer's whole job is to keep you protected from the elements that you're in. Now, most of the time you hear this used in the context of hiking or skiing or something like that. When we're on the job, though, we're worried about abrasion and, cut resistance, things like that. So most guys will wear a heavy duck canvas jacket, no matter what it is. That's usually what they'll wear because it's affordable. It shrugs off abrasion and cuts and things like that. Like a nylon shell, we usually get cut or snagged very easily. So a lot of times your work jacket of choice will be plenty in this category. Personally, I've been using the one from Heat Straps lately. It's really nice, and as a matter of fact, it might even be a little bit too warm for, the 30-degree temperatures, but I've been wearing it. It's waxed canvas, made in the USA. It might be a little expensive compared to, your typical Dickies and stuff like that, but definitely well worth it. And if you like made in the USA, this is where it's at. For pants, I usually just stick with whatever I usually wear. So, heavy duck canvas, heavy denim, things like that. Your favorite work pants will be just fine at this level. Same thing with the boots. I still wear my normal work boots that I wear all the time. Right now, it's still the Nix Builder Pros. Those are my favorite. I've had them for a long time. They need a resole, so I'm gonna be sending those out soon. But I will change out my socks. So at this level, I'll go with the Darn Tough Hunter, or maybe whatever hunting model. They're a little bit thicker. You can get the full cushion, so they're nice and insulated all the way around. If your feet get cold, here's a little tip that I do sometimes. I'll bring a second pair with me, and I'll swap them out at lunch. Your feet sweat more than any other part of your body. And as we mentioned earlier, when you have moisture trapped against your skin and all you have is a leather outer shell, being the boot itself, your feet are gonna turn into ice cubes real quick. Just change them out at lunch. Makes a huge difference. Now, as far as gloves go, usually at this level, I probably won't wear gloves, but if I'm handling conduit or something like that, anything metallic, the company issues these Maxi Flex gloves. They're really stretchy. They have a rubberized palm, so you get good dexterity still. Sometimes I'll wear those, but they're more of a pain in the neck than anything. Level 2, I would consider to be anywhere from 5 to 20 degrees. Now, when I ran that chairlift, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, when I first started the job, I would go out there and I would wear a long sleeve cotton shirt, a sweatshirt, and then like whatever jacket I could find, probably my ski jacket, and then I would wear some sort of like sweatpants, and then I wear my ski pants over that. And I was frozen by the end of the shift. I was wearing all cotton. So all that cotton did was hold on to moisture and put it against your skin. Have you ever worn a t-shirt that's been wet? Or if you just leave one out for a little while, I mean, it gets very cold to the touch. And that's exactly what this was doing. And it wasn't until somebody from the ski patrol actually kind of showed me how to layer. I remember we went into they have like the little pro shop or whatever it's called for skiers. And he showed me why you want a base layer, why you want this, why you want that, and how it'll keep him warm, even working a whole shift as a ski patrol guy. It was really, really eye-opening. So I got myself a pair of base layers. I got the stuff that I needed. And the difference was unbelievable. Going from wearing cotton, and I thought just layering cotton on top of cotton would keep me warm, No, didn't work. So at this level, I'll typically stick with my same old Helly Hansen base layer. Here's the thing, okay? I know that it's tempting to go with the 100% synthetic base layers out there. And truth be told, I do think that they wick a little bit better than the wool blend or the pure wool version. But in my experience, they tend to hold on to odor a lot more. So you could wear these things, working all day or whatever, throw them in the wash, they come out, they smell fine, but it seems like shortly into the next time you wear it, they start to smell again. That might just be my stinky, so I always try to go with the wool or the wool blend. They seem to just work a lot better. Wool has antimicrobial benefits to it, so maybe that's kind of counteracting the odor that's caused by the synthetics. I don't know. Personally, I would save up for a good pair of wool ones versus going with a cheaper synthetic version. Now, at this level, we really have to start paying more attention to our middle insulating layer. Now, what I'll usually do is I like to wear a vest. It allows my arms to be a little bit more free, especially when wearing a jacket on top of that. So I like the Carhartt Gilliam vest. I don't think it's actually called the Gilliam vest anymore. I think it's called something else. But the whole idea is a lightweight synthetic down, puffer vest or jacket, depending on how cold you get. These really do trap a lot of air. And the good thing is that you can find them pretty much anywhere. You could get these things at Target, at Tractor Supply, at Walmart. And they do a really good job of holding on to that warm air. Same thing can be said for high pile fleece. One of my favorite was called the Monkey Man. It was by Mountain Hardware, and I bought 2 of them, thankfully, because they don't make them anymore. So, not to keep talking about discontinued products, but if you could find a modern version of a higher pile fleece, which are available out there now, go ahead and get one of those. You layer that underneath your jacket and you'll be good to go. Now, usually when you take care of that middle insulating layer, your normal work jacket will be just fine. You're controlling your heat kind of from the inside out. So I still wear that heat straps jacket. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, are you working near water? Because a lot of times humidity in the air makes it feel way colder. In Connecticut, we have a lot of shoreline, and right now we're doing a job that's literally on the water, and I can tell you that the feeling of the humid, cold air coming at you, it just freezes me to the bone. So a lot of times in this situation, I like to wear something that's nylon, so you can get a nylon duck. The Carhartt Extreme series is made out of stuff like this, but again, any company that you like, you could probably find a nylon version of. Just tends not to hold on to the moisture, and I find it to be a lot warmer. As far as pants go, I like the fleece-lined jeans that you could find. There's also flannel-lined jeans. And this is also the level where maybe the bibs come out. So a lot of guys up here will keep their insulated bibs in their truck or in their car. And when it gets really cold, closer to that 5-degree mark, a lot of times they'll bring them out. And the beauty about these is that you can wear them over anything that you're currently wearing. So you throw them on over exactly what you have on underneath your jacket, and they add a huge level of warmth. They really do. So being able to change throughout the day makes a big difference, because most of the time we're working in buildings that aren't finished yet. They're a shell. So if the wind picks up, being able to add another layer really does make a big difference. At this level, I usually bring out my hard hat liner as well. Now, if you've never seen one of these, what they actually do is using Velcro, they go into the suspension of your hard hat, and then they kind of come down like this. There's a chin strap that makes it go underneath your chin. They're also long enough to tuck into your jacket. Now, we actually issue these. We order them by the sleeve, and then they're issued to everybody who works for that company. If your company doesn't do that, they're really cheap. I prefer the ones that are fleece rather than the ones that are quilted nylon. They're quieter. And when that thing is right up against your ear, it's pretty loud. But just being able to, kind of close off that area around your neck and around your face, it does make a big difference. Typically at this level, I'm wearing my same old work boots. The only thing that I'll change out is that insole. I'll switch to an alpaca insole. And I forgot where I got mine before, but I'll try to link below where you could get one now, or if I can figure out where I got my pair. They make a nice cushion of warm air rather than standing on the rubber or Dr. Scholl's or whatever you have inside of your boot. And again, it's just creating that insulating layer around your feet. Now, here's another word of caution around, boots and stuff like that. I know some guys will say, wear 2 pairs of socks and, that'll make you a lot warmer. I would advise against that, because what that ends up doing is sort of restricting blood flow around your foot, because you have 2 pairs of socks, so it's a little bit tight. That's the last thing that you want. So instead, what I say is getting a good thick wool sock. And as a matter of fact, tying your boots just a little bit looser than normal to allow the blood to flow around your foot. If you cut off that circulation, you're not going to have anything to bring warm blood to your feet, and you're going to be freezing. So that's just one word of caution. I know some guys, they swear by wearing 2 pairs of socks. 2 pairs of cotton socks, no way. I would absolutely go with 1 pair of good wool socks any day of the week. As far as gloves go, sometimes you can get those jersey knit gloves with the rubber palm to them. That does make a big difference. Again, if you're handling metallic stuff, or heck, if you're handling anything around 5 degrees, it's going to be cold. So keeping a pair of these in your pocket or on all day. See, if you keep them on, though, you tend to build up sweat underneath that rubberized palm. At least I do. So I put them on when I need them, and I take them off and put them in my pocket when I don't. But that's just my mileage. Level 3 is 5 degrees and down to the point where they're going to call off work for the day. Now, when I was working on the railroad in 2019, I was doing the night shift, and I learned firsthand how much colder the nights are than the day. It's a no-brainer. You look at any of the forecasts, it'll tell you get colder at night, but just not having that sun makes a huge difference. And on the railroad, the wind whipping down that corridor along the tracks is miserable. Going through a tunnel is even worse. So anyway, night shifts suck. The warmest base layer that you can get is silk. Silk's expensive, but if you can get a set of tops and bottoms, there's also sock liners, which again, same idea, is to go against your foot, beneath your sock, and wick away that sweat. I used to have a pair of these. I don't wear them anymore, but the silk top and bottom layer do make a big difference. Silk doesn't tend to wick as well as wool does, and again, as I said, it's expensive. So in a pinch, just, steal your wife's Victoria's Secret stuff. No, don't do that. I'm just kidding. No judgment, though. If that's what you do, that's fine. Whatever. Your insulating layer can be high pile fleece or a down puffer jacket. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I've worn, my base layer, I've worn a flannel shirt, maybe a fleece, and then on top of that, I've worn one of those Milwaukee battery heated jackets. They're not as good as I thought they were going to be. To be honest with you, I kind of thought it would almost be like when you're sitting next to a wood stove, that sort of radiant heat. It's not that nice. You could definitely feel the heat, but it's not as good as I would have thought. So sometimes what I'll actually do is I'll wear one of those beneath my top layer. Now we're talking about a lot of layers here, but if we're talking about sub-zero temperatures, then you gotta do what you gotta do. You know that you're gonna be giving up mobility the more you start to layer up. And that's why productivity goes down when you start to get below a certain temperature and above a certain temperature, because your body just isn't meant to, operate in those conditions efficiently. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually put on that jacket underneath my top layer, and what it tends to do, it chews through batteries. I don't know if I would really recommend one, but it seems like it'll just offer you a little bit of supplemental heat when you're really, really chilled to the bone. You could turn that thing on high, and it's beneath your top layer, so it tends to sort of hold that heat against you, which is actually pretty nice. Now again, I don't wear this thing all the time. It's just sort of a measure that I'll take when it's going to be especially cold or especially damp. Now the big guns come out for the top layer. I like the Carhartt Extremes Parka. That thing is a brick house. It's awesome. When I put that on, I haven't experienced a period where I've actually been chilled while wearing that coat. Even when I was doing some surveying not too long ago, we again had done some work on the railroad. So we were going along and I was plotting the points for where we had installed all the equipment that we installed along that section of track. It was about 20-something miles. So we were essentially hiking along the track, and I think it was February, something like that. Really cold, really windy, and I had this jacket on. And it was the coziest thing. It almost felt like my torso stayed in bed for the day. It was really nice. But parkas definitely aren't great for work because you cannot wear a tool belt no matter what. Now, if your job requires a tool belt, you can't put it over the top of it, and if you put it underneath it, you don't have any access to the tools. Or if you're wearing fall protection, sometimes we're up on lifts or you're on, a roof or something like that, and you have to wear the full harness. You can't put that on over a parka because, the hem is too long. So in that case, what I'll do is usually wear something like a set of coveralls. It's basically like a jacket and pants all put together, and they're insulated and they are pretty warm. You can maybe layer on top of that, but if you have to wear fall protection or if you absolutely have to wear, a tool belt or something like that, sometimes these work, and you have the benefit of having that shared warm air trapped against your body. Again, I would go with the parka if I had my preference, but again, if you have to wear one because of some other reason, I think those coveralls are a pretty good deal. Just one word of caution with those coveralls, though. If you got lunch off the roach coach and that burrito or whatever you had is not agreeing with you at 2 o'clock and you gotta run to the John, you have to take the whole top section off to do your business. So you're basically sitting there essentially down to, your middle layer in this blue hut, doing your business while the rest of that stuff is on the floor. So there are drawbacks and advantages to both. Now, there's also a brand called Wear, and they specialize just in cold weather gear. Now, the only thing that I have from Wear is I have their extreme soft shell high-vis jacket. I got it because putting on a high-vis vest over your jacket is a pain in the neck. So I got this thinking it's entirely high-vis. Let's check it out. And it says it's rated down to -60, which I don't think I believe that. I've worn this thing at -10 or something like that. You're still getting pretty cold. It has this reflective foil kind of stuff on the inside. I guess the idea is, again, to reflect your body heat back to you. I'm not really sure how well that works, but I will say that this thing's damn warm. So if you're going to wear it, in typical working conditions where it's, 0 or a little bit below, you'll be fine. They also have a whole bunch of boots and bibs and all kinds of stuff, all the way from lightweight, very economical stuff to the high-end Extreme series. But even with the Extreme, the one that I bought, I think it was like under $200, and they're always sending out coupons, so never buy it at full price. Regular work boots below 0 just aren't gonna cut it, no matter how thick your socks are. So I go with the Baffin Apex boots. Now, I don't think they make these anymore. I think the version that they have now is called something like the Eiger boot. They look like Herman Munster boots. They're gigantic, but again, the whole idea is that insulation that's around your foot. The nice thing about these two is that you can actually remove that insole. The whole boot that fits inside of the leather outer section comes out, so you can dry them off. And that's one of the other things, is making sure that you have a boot dryer. They're cheap, they're on Amazon. You can stick your boots on and dry them out, because if you go back to work the next day and your feet get chilled real quick, I'll bet your boot is holding on to some moisture. Wear, as I mentioned before, does have cold weather boots depending on where you're working, and that's one of the things you gotta watch out for job site requirements. Do you need a steel toe? Do you need a composite toe? Metatarsal guard? Those are the kind of things you have to consider before you buy a pair of cold weather boots. As far as gloves go, it really depends on what you're doing. Now, a rule of thumb is that mittens are always warmer than gloves, because when you segment out all of your fingers, they get cold really quickly. When they're together, they can share that warmth. They're much warmer. As far as working people go, it's very difficult to use a mitten. So a lot of times what I'll use is just a pair of ski gloves, or I'll wear those ones from the second level. Your hands you can warm up a little bit easier than the rest of your body. Now, as far as your head goes, especially if you have to wear a hard hat, the hard hat liner works well, but usually in conjunction with that, I'll wear a balaclava or some sort of head covering that goes over your nose and your mouth. The big problem with these is that moisture tends to get caught here and will ice up. You'll see guys a lot of the time, they'll only have this section showing, but this is all iced up. So sometimes what I'll end up doing is I'll bring the Stormy Chromer bandana and I'll switch from that to the other, letting one dry out. This, again, is when it gets really cold, it sucks. And I know there are some versions out there with a valve that allow your air to escape and doesn't keep that moisture against you. I don't have any of those. I've never tried them. I imagine you'd look like Darth Vader, which is, hey, if that's your thing, cool. But the balaclava does work. It keeps your cheeks and your nose warm, which is a big part that's like, when you get a wind going, it's really, really bad. And your hard hat doesn't do you any favors as far as keeping you warm at all. So that's usually what I'll do as far as the head is concerned. Now, again, your version of this is going to change drastically depending on what it is that you do, the trade that you're in, or the conditions that you're in. So it's interesting to hear what different people do to keep warm depending on what their task is. So I'd love to know. Please let me know in the comments. That'd be really cool to hear from you guys. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I'll catch you later.